Amazing. Today we are live on the SEO Leadership webinar. Today we have an exciting guest. We have Andrew Parker. He's the Senior Audience Growth Strategist at 10up, and 10up has crafted websites and tools for content creators as well as websites, and their clients include Microsoft, Disney, Google, Starbucks, and even the state of California, which is quite interesting. Andrew has gathered 15 plus years of experience with roles such as Head of and Director of SEO at companies such as iTech, Media, Edit, and Branded 3 in his previous experience. So, Andrew, how are you keeping?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Shreya. I'm great. How are you?
No, we're all good. We're all good. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate that Andrew is feeling a bit ill and out of the weather at the moment. So we really appreciate you joining us today to chat. Andrew, we usually like to kick things off by asking you a little bit about your career progression for our listeners to help understand you a little bit better. If you can tell us a little bit about how you got into SEO and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and condense it into something that's interesting. I've been doing SEO for 15 years. I got into SEO an agency called Branded 3 that you just mentioned. I'll be really honest. Like I took that job. I'd finished uni and I took that job because I got weekends off, and I was like, "This sounds great. I don't know too much about SEO, but I'll do what you need me to do." And quickly kind of got under the skin of the industry and the search landscape at the time, which was obviously very different to what it is now. And really, really like fell in love with the channel and the kind of the nice mix of creativity and technical and kind of what the industry kind of looks like now, a lot more established. In those kind of early days, those things were there, but not in the same way. And stayed with Branded 3 for a long time. Amazing group of people that I was able to work with, luckily for a long time, learn an awful lot from, and kind of develop within that organization. So as the organization grew, so did the SEO team, and I eventually kind of moved through and became senior strategist, then head of SEO, and then later kind of director of SEO when the agency was acquired and changed its name to Edit. So yeah, and throughout that time, kind of always tried to stay hands-on with clients. One of the things I've always tried to do in any of the kind of leadership roles I've had is at least do some hands-on work, so I can feel like I'm staying in what's current and knowing what's working. And I feel like that makes me a better SEO, but also a better leader of other SEOs as well. And then, moved on to iTech Media, which is another place I work that's now changed its name. It's now called Legend. And they are a large portfolio kind of group of portfolio websites, so a global scale. A big team there was kind of 20-25 people. Again, incredibly talented group of people. A lot are still there, doing some really interesting things. And that was a really interesting space to be in. It was largely kind of casino space, very challenging space, and a really good place to kind of hone your skills and know if you're any good at what you do. And then more recently, as you mentioned, kind of at 10up, where it's more an individual contributor role, a smaller team, working on some really interesting and really big names with kind of their challenges and trying to help them grow from an SEO point of view, but also doing a lot of analytics and data things as well with those clients. So I feel like I've been around the block a little bit and done like a lot of cool stuff. Had an awful lot of opportunity to work with some great people. So I've been really lucky in that process, really.
Awesome. We are always looking for interesting and unique ways to help sell the perks of companies. So adding weekends off to come selling a company is a great tip to have. I wanted to actually ask, because it's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that. You mentioned Branded 3 as well as iTech have been sort of like bought over and acquired. But what was quite interesting was that you were growing internally within Branded 3 as they were, in the process of being bought over and acquired. What was it like with the career progression in an internal sort of company or capacity? And then once you were in that leadership position, having to be acquired over, were there any like sort of stresses that you experienced, communication issues? What were there any challenges that you experienced?
Yeah, great question. I was kind of lucky in like Branded 3. I was kind of in a position where all of that stuff happened away from me. Certainly, in when I've been in organizations where that's happened and you've been in leadership positions, you get the biggest challenge, I think, for you as a leader of the team is to kind of make sure nobody else in the team feels those concerns, or if they have concerns around what does this mean for the future of the team or for me and my role and what's the company going to look like in a year, you can make sure you equip yourself as best you can to answer those questions and kind of give them something solid to work off. That's definitely the bigger challenge, is kind of just those unknowns. And sometimes you might not have the answer to those questions. You've just got to be as honest as you can. That's always the real thing that you've got to, people can tell when you're messing them around, and you're not really, you're holding something back. You've just got to be honest with your team and say, this is what I know, this is what I think is going to happen, and this is what I know so far, and this is where we're at. Depending on the organization can impact how much of that information you have and how much you can share. But certainly that's the biggest challenge, is kind of keeping everyone focused on what they're doing, keeping them comfortable, but then also squashing like the rumors that can pop up. The larger the organization, the more you hear random things from left field. It's like, so-and-so said this, what does that mean? And yeah, that could be completely new to you and you've not heard that, and that's not true at all. And so it's how you kind of keep people focused. And the only way you can do that is by being honest and sharing regular updates, really.
Excellent. Andy, just on that with Branded 3, obviously spend close to like 10, 11 years with an agency, you don't really see that too often. Was there anything about them that made you stay that long and obviously progressing that quickly? Was that like is progression obviously is like always an option for people, or does it just happen to per chance that you got that quite quickly?
Yeah, the thing that made me stay was the people. So you don't need to look far in the industry to see like the great people that were at Branded 3 and the things they're doing now to know that they have been great to work with. You see like the guys and the whole team at Connected 3, see like Carrie at Rise at 7, Stevie K, Ken Wright now at Ride Shotgun. Like there's loads of examples. There's other people that I'll have missed that have been great and they were brilliant to work with and learn from. And for a good number of years, like it felt like we were doing great work for clients, we were getting results for clients, but it didn't really feel like work too much. It was like we were having, a great time doing what we do and delivering results. So that was really one of the things that kept me there for so long, was just, you're progressing and this is actually really good. And it felt, like we were kind of building something special. And I think in terms of the progression, there's always that opportunity in terms of you find the opportunity of what it is you're doing, like the value in you're doing, or there's something else that you could be offering as part of your skill set or your service within the agency, and kind of capitalizing on that to make sure then that you're selling it to clients. And those are the kind of things where you can create your own opportunities. And I really like the agency space for that. If you can find something that's going to be valuable, then people are going to want to use you for it. And that was something that at Branded 3, there was a lot of encouragement to kind of, what else can we be doing? How else can we find value for clients? And how else can we become a really solid partner and not just, someone who does a link building campaign or their title tags or something like that? But how do we become an actual, really integral part of what they're trying to achieve?
Okay. And then when it comes to obviously having to move on after that so many times, was that just a matter of like sort of feeling like you've done everything there, like hitting like a sort of ceiling and wanting to try something new? And if so, when you're managing another team and obviously you're at that sort of top level and people always are sort of looking to progress. So if you have like a senior SEO manager who, is really integral to the team, but looking at progression, but can't because there's not enough sort of space to move up, how do you sort of motivate them, or is there any sort of ways you can sort of help them to get that progression without having to move them on?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen more of, like in the last 5 years, that people are being, and companies are being more appreciative of, is not everyone wants to progress in the same way. Mm-hmm. So often you can be in an organization and you can look around at other people above you or what people are being promoted into, and you think, okay, that's the only way forward for me. And often it's, like someone's really good at this technical role, whatever it might be, content, links, SEO, and then they get made a manager of people that do that. And that's not necessarily the only way to progress. So there's other things that people might be interested in, and they don't want to force themselves into a role just because it feels like progression, but it's not right for them. And so one of the things that we did an awful lot of work on at iTech, and there's a brilliant people team that helped with this, which is kind of separating those progression paths between those that want to manage people and want to kind of develop other people and kind of become into those roles, and then others that want to progress down the individual contributor path. And what does that look like, and breaking out the steps within each of those kind of career journeys within the organizations. And it created some really interesting discussions around like what people want. And when you start to break down those walls of this is what, there's actually loads of opportunities and different ways that you could progress. What sounds the most exciting to you, and what is the most enticing and going to, you're really the thing you most want to do. You can then kind of start shaping things for the people in the team to give them something that they're really excited about, they're going to do their best work in, and also as an organization, as a team, you're going to see the benefit of. So that's kind of how I approach it. It's just kind of figuring out where they want to get to. And it might be that they don't want to do anything different. They just want to, keep doing what they're doing and work on something more complicated or something like that. But until you have those conversations and kind of lay all out on the table, you don't really know what's available, but also what people are after.
Nicely transitioning into my next question, actually, which is that you had a specialty mentioned in your LinkedIn profile about mentoring. So I really wanted to cover that. Soft skills has been such a hot topic naturally in 2024. We've covered it a lot in our webinars as well. And I wanted to ask, do you have any advice to junior SEOs going into 2025 on skills that that you think that may be crucial moving into 2025? You have naturally had 15 plus years of SEO experience, so you've had the pleasure of seeing the skill sets sort of build as the roles and SEO grows and develops. So I would love to pick your brain about that.
Yeah. I think that the soft skills is a really important one, and part of that mentoring that I've done and the training that I've done and the environment we built at Branded 3 in particular in the SEO team was finding the right people with the right attitude and those kind of skills, and not necessarily being brilliant SEOs yet. And our job was to turn them into that. And I think a big part of, being, it's massively underrated, I think, and not talked about a huge amount, but just being good to work with. You want to do good work and you want to learn and progress, and you want to collaborate with the people that are around you, whatever their discipline and whatever you need in terms of getting things done and getting results. So those soft skills in terms of understanding how to get things done. It's not enough just to say, use a really straightforward example. It's not enough to say this keyword has this much search and we currently don't have a page for it. Make a page. That's quite a straightforward one, but sometimes you work in larger organizations and you need to create tickets and success criteria and things like that. And it might be new to you, especially as a junior SEO. And the best thing to do is spend time with the people that are going to be implementing your recommendations and understanding the language they speak and how you can frame your recommendations in order to get things done and get it closer to that outcome that you want. That's a massive thing. There's a really great SEO called Adam Gent who spends an awful lot of effort in kind of just helping people get things done and translating SEO recommendations into things that happen. And that's the fact that he's doing so well and that exists means it's a thing that is valuable, I think. And that's definitely something that the SEO knowledge will come, but make sure you know how to act on that knowledge.
Amazing. I'll definitely check him out. Yep, Darcy, you have a question?
And on that, I know you mentioned at the start that when you got to that sort of director level, you still doing a bit of hands-on work and stuff like that. Do you find that doing that sort of work gets more sort of buy-in from your team, especially if you've just sort of moved to the company and you can sort of show your expertise and get them on your side from the get-go?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've never actually asked if it helped or not, like with the team. But certainly I felt like I could be more confident in what I was recommending and proposing if I've done it myself, or we're in the process of doing it. And I definitely think, turning up and saying like, I've worked at this agency and on these clients will get you so far, but like at some point you've got to show that you're willing to kind of, yeah, exactly, proofs in the pudding or whatever you want to say. And that's definitely something that is useful, and it helps not only with the team but with clients as well. Like so many times anecdotally things can come up when you're talking to clients, and you can say, we've done this over here and it worked really well, or we're seeing this over here, and it's sometimes can be a different industry to them, but there's certainly value in kind of having your hands on all those different places where you can draw on that experience and apply it to the situation that you're in.
Brilliant.
I have one more question on iTech before we move on to 10 up and beyond, because we do have a lot of beyond questions. But I know that iTech, you worked in the gaming industry quite a lot. And I think that's something quite interesting, as obviously with SEO for Hire, we encounter clients as well in a similar industry, and tackling SEOs that are whether like debating working in the industry or not. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience just working in the industry as a general and some of the aspects you enjoyed about it without maybe, I guess, divulging too much into the taboo topics?
Yeah. I think, like as I mentioned before, it's the more competitive the industry, then the more likely you are to come across different ways of doing things, and the more lucrative the industry, then the more intense that is. And so iGaming's a really good place for that to happen, depending on your perspective. So we definitely came across things that would be black hat, not that we did them or were doing them or anything like that. It's just you come across that a lot more, and then you want to do things in the right way. So you want to then find ways to make more morally acceptable SEO tactics work, and kind of outperform those things. So it's a space where you have to be really strong on like what you're doing and kind of move at speed, and be quick to change if it's not working, and also kind of taking advantage of new channels or new space and things like that. So I'm being really vague, no, but there's a lot of interesting things that we did, and saw like competitors doing that were interesting. Sometimes we take little bits from them, sometimes they're quite frustrating. And then there's other things, that there's a whole other side to it that isn't even competitor led, but it's like, what is Google doing with the SERPs, and like what kind of sites is it ranking for certain types of queries? And in some spaces it's just your site's not going to rank because they're ranking all these news sites that are doing kind of, someone's doing parasite SEO on them and things like that. So there's a whole host of short-term thinking and short-term gain that's in there, and we were trying really hard to build brands that lasted and added value to the people that used them, and were more than just, someone was going to click through and then that was it. We wanted to build things where people could come back, and I think that was like the really interesting part for me, was like how you incorporate that into an industry and a space where it is very, very commercial and very aggressive.
That's very
obviously. Sorry, sir. Just on that, obviously being sort of director at that time, obviously a lot of the sort of the buck policy, especially with the clients and things like that. I know you mentioned sort of black hat and people doing that, especially in like sort of gambling, iGaming and stuff like that. How do you sort of keep peace of mind to your client that if they're seeing their competitors who might be using black hat or might be getting like sort of quicker results, how do you sort of balance that act with like telling them that like it will come on, like, but promising them results at the same time? It is difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Often they come to you for a specific purpose, and it is for like a successful engagement and SEO campaign and like this long-term focus. And so the thing with kind of some of those other tactics is they kind of undermine that, and they can be shorter term. So often, you put all this effort in to get this site to this point, and then you want to switch approach, there's risks that come with that. And, you know, you're going to kind of throw out some of that work. You can obviously do a lot of things like redirecting it onto another site and kind of take that short-term return each time that gradually just gets shorter and shorter. But my approach with clients is always like, this isn't a long-term thing. Like, unless you want to go down that path and you're committing to constantly having to redo things over and over again, then that's the wrong way to go. And we were always interested in building things that were valuable and had a long, you know, they were going to stand the test of time and we could take them into multiple regions easily. And that was kind of the expansion we focused on rather than the rinse and repeat approach that some of the other tactics had.
Were there any, I guess I'm also asking this for SEOs that are looking to enter the industry for the particular skill sets that come from it. Were there any standout skill sets that you took from iTech that you brought into 10up? You can also say no. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is probably just a personal thing, like in terms of I didn't, probably wasn't as hot on it as I could have been, and I took from iTech, from some of the great SEOs there, was just kind of the whole JavaScript and rendering and rendered DOM and source versus kind of what you've seen in your browser and understanding that. And I think that's something that's underappreciated across the industry. Like, you can tell the SEOs that really get it and really talk about it, and they stand out. They stand out normally from the others. And so often, and I'm one of these where I'll just be like, I can understand it to a point, and then I'm going to just raise my hand and ask for an engineer to help me out and help me understand it, which is also okay. You know, there's different skill sets, but in that industry specifically, like that's quite a valuable skill.
Awesome. Cool. And then I wanted to also mention, you also brought up the aspect of conducting competitor analyses as something that, you know, you specialize in. What are your processes currently like? Are there any unique approaches that you take when conducting something like this? And I also wanted to ask on the topic of AI. Have you found that AI is considerably useful in this field?
Yeah. On the competitor analysis, I don't know if it's unique, but I can happily like go through my approach and then talk about kind of what I do. But I find the value in it is just kind of understanding what's working or not working for other sites, and then how you can apply it to yourself. But I like to start with kind of overall landscape and visibility trends over the last, as far as possible, but normally the last 2 years, just to see kind of where the growth's come from, what's triggered that growth. Has it been, you know, additional content? Have they redesigned the site? And you can use things like the Wayback Machine to kind of understand that. Or is it like a link campaign, things like that? Or have they been kind of impacted by algorithm updates? And, you know, if they have, I like to look at like what it was like before and right after. So there's like little bits of analysis within the wider analysis to kind of see the before and after. And then that helps create kind of a nice foundation of these are the things that have happened in this industry and in these SERPs for the last 2 years. And these are the things that have moved the needle the most. And then you can start to then apply that to the side that you're working on. So where do they sit in comparison from a links perspective, content, what's their technical like, but you don't really need competitors to do that. And then you can start to kind of build out your strategy from there and understand these are the things that we need to do. These are the kind of the near term, medium and long term fixes, and then build that out into a strategy in terms of SEO point of view, what's going on, but also what other things are they doing that you can then kind of hook into or could complement SEO, which kind of brings it on to the things we're seeing in the industry more recently, where you see SEO agencies moving into kind of that brand activation space, and they're kind of looking at like how else they can create campaigns that are different to what we've seen maybe in the last 5-10 years, where they are just, you know, a static page or an asset or whatever people want to call them, and they're moving more into that. How do we create something that helps us capitalize on those opportunities that we found when we've done the competitor analysis? So you see kind of that that joined up process is going to be more and more important, and you're going to see SEO agencies talk about it more and more often in terms of, this is the opportunity, but this is what you need to go after. That opportunity is slightly different to what it might have been in the past, and the campaigns look slightly different, and they're a lot more elaborate, and you've got studios and kind of videographers and strategists, so from a brand perspective, coming in and building something that is not necessarily just aimed at getting you to rank for keywords, but it's also influencing users and user behavior in terms of how they search for you, how they find you, and then you can be more stable on Google, I think, in the long term.
Awesome. And then I think just parallel to that, another question in a similar sort of line, which I was quite interested in was content auditing. What is your experience like within like the developments of AI at the moment, and how has it been affecting this space?
Yeah, I'm more interested in it from a kind of like how it can improve processes.
Okay.
And certainly that's where I've seen the benefit the most in terms of speeding up analysis and kind of like some of that like work that you need to do. In terms of its impact, I've worked with or seen on a lot of publisher sites where they've kind of lost out a lot, especially in the US when AI overviews first rolled out, and then they went quite far, then they rolled back, and now they're kind of creeping back out again. And you've seen that refining from Google. That's definitely something that's a concern, I think, just in terms of like what do you do with that? It's all about understanding where that information is coming from and optimizing for that, and not necessarily just your site. And I think I had some interesting chats with other agencies where they do an awful lot, and they've said they've been able to kind of double their workload because of AI in terms of like how much they can put out. I've not necessarily seen that impact. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but I've definitely seen improvements in terms of workflows and things like that. But I think it still remains to be seen like how much faster we can go and like still retain that quality overall.
Definitely. Andrew, one of the things I wanted to mention is I know you've been doing freelance for quite a while as well. A lot of the candidates that we talk to are, working full time, or they either want to try and start freelance full time or do it, start on the side and then maybe progress into full time after that. Is there any sort of advice on how to get started, and another one like how to actually manage it if you're already in a full time position?
Yeah. To get started, it's just about talking to people, like, asking around. It depends how much you're kind of pushing it, I guess, based on your situation. There's certainly understanding what people's requirements are and kind of going from there. There's ways you can kind of, I guess, ease into it gently with sites like Upwork and things like that, but I find them quite not that useful. Like the best things like referrals and just knowing, someone saying, "Oh, I know someone that they could help you out with this." And in terms of managing it, you've just got to be realistic. Like if you are wanting to kind of run it alongside your 9 to 5, you should probably let whoever your 9 to 5 is know, just so there's no kind of conflicts there. But also, how much do you actually want to be working? Are you working every night or every weekend, or what does that look like? And being clear with your potential clients about how quickly you can turn things around and what that looks like. And be really honest with them around, like, I'm doing this as well as this, so I'll probably be available on these days at this time or something like that. I've found when I've been really honest in that way, like, I've never had a problem. And the clients have been like, that's absolutely fine. That makes sense for us. And this is why. And it just gets the relationship off to a great start. And often, those people that you end up working with they're looking for a solution, or they've got a challenge, and you can help them with that. And they were probably prepared to spend more, like they were going to have to spend more with an agency, but you can help them like in a consultative role often, but it's still good for you and it's good for them. So there's like wins all round. So I think it's about understanding how much you want to commit to it, and then what your proposition is, and thinking about those things before you properly start talking to people, I think, as well. And
in terms of sort of junior people starting off in it, how much is involved in like having like a good pitch, or being able to like sell yourself as well?
In freelance, you mean?
Yeah.
My experience, the freelance comes around slightly different. Like, it's not like your normal, someone's putting out an RFP. It's just that, like, someone's asked someone if they know someone who can help them with this, and that's where the talking to other people comes in, and having a little bit of a personal brand, maybe around, I'm really good at tech SEO, and people will think of you and send work your way. What I've found is, rather than having a really good pitch, is just having a few case studies, a couple of things you've worked on, really worth keeping track of the things you work on, and just a little example of the results, or grabbing like a visibility graph or something like that, so you can then say just quickly in an email, like, I've worked on this, it was in your industry, this is what I did, this is the results, and here's a graph to prove it. Those things, like, is normally much as impactful as like a full-on pitch. I've never gone for like freelance work and someone asked me to do like a pitch in the same way an agency would.
Okay. Got it.
Awesome. Andrew, we usually leave this to the last question, and then there's always like 30 seconds left or something. If you could, as we're nearing the end of the year, do you have any SEO forecasts for 2025?
Oh, I don't know if I do.
Okay, that's the short. That's the short.
I think like the AI stuff, and like that's obviously not going into it. That's a super easy answer. I'm just going to throw that out there. AI. And then I think also that joined up like that brand approach, and like what you do to bring your brand to search rather than building it in search. I think that's going to be key in 2025. It's already key, but it's going to keep being key.
Amazing. Powerful ending. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. For everyone listening, if you would like to follow Andrew, his link is somewhere here. And we'll also be putting this up on YouTube and Spotify very soon as well. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, as well as while you were sick as well. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for putting up with me eating coffee.
Yeah, man. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Andrew. Bye.